Hello, good evening, everybody. I'm so happy to have Dr. Corey with me tonight. He's been with me before when we talked about leadership and other goal setting, different topics during my show, Quarantine Connect 2020. And tonight, and yes, during Quarantine 2020, we discussed about his book, Spartan CEO, and we've been waiting for it for so long. So tonight, we are going to talk about how leaders can do very well and excel in what they do, and we're also going to discuss how Spartan CEO is making change in other people's lives and all those wonderful readers who've got it already through Amazon or through Dr. Corey's website are enjoying it, including myself, yes, of course, because I'm also reading the book these days and I find it very useful and a fun reading, not another, let's say, leadership book. Something that you will enjoy, something you will learn from, something that you'd like to have even before bedtime. So, starting off with Dr. Corey's interview, Dr. Corey is one of the greatest business leaders in Dubai, I must say. And he is the CEO of wonderful company named Paragon Consulting. He has written before as well a lot of research papers. He's into research, yes. He's an
Yes.
executive coach, an author, and a speaker, and an amazing business strategist who inspires me all the time. So, welcome to the show, Dr. Corey, and I'm so glad to have you with me tonight.
Thank you, Nousheen. It's really great to be here. It's good to see you again. The last time I was on your show, I told you that my book was coming and it was going to be like just a few weeks. Well, there it is.
There
Right?
it is. Yay, we
There
got
it is.
it.
Yes. Amazing.
I
It's
love
like
the
a
cover, by
miracle.
the way.
Yeah,
It's
thank you.
beautiful, yes.
So it'll be another couple of weeks. It'll be on shelves everywhere where there's books sold. Right now, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, Amazon.ae. You can buy it at more than 200 online booksellers all over the world. And if you want a physical book, you can buy one there too. They'll ship it to you.
Great.
But yeah, it's been a long time getting this out. It's 20 years of experience, 10 years of writing down the stories, and another 2 years of hardcore research.
Wow. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah,
the
but
book.
no, like it's packed with great stories and
Yes.
exceptional information for leaders. So one of the when I started writing, it was about 10 years ago. I started as an executive coach, and that was mostly because my strategy clients really just wanted to know more from me. And so I said, look, why don't I just be a coach for you? And over those 10 years, I've learned from coaching hundreds of C-suite and executive level clients that there are some behaviors that really set exceptional leaders apart from average or mediocre leaders. And so I started to do some research into figuring out what those exceptional behaviors are. And so I called them the 6 pillars of executive performance. And they don't appear like this in the book. Sorry, go ahead.
Which is the first pillar of executive performance?
There's 6 pillars. So the chapters in the book are each a pillar, but I haven't given them the names of the pillars. The pillars themselves are fitness, confidence, discipline, connecting, rest, and competition. Those are the 6 pillars. So, like, to give you an example, fitness is number 1. I say fitness is the first pillar because, and we don't just talk about physical fitness. We're talking about physical, mental, and organizational fitness at the same time. And I think some of you might be wondering what organizational fitness even means. Yes, I discussed that also in the book. But we talk about physical fitness from the leadership standpoint. Does it matter if a leader is physically fit or not? And actually, on the bottom line, yes, it really matters. So in 2 separate studies, for example, of the S&P 1500, they found that there's a 57% value profitability gap between companies that are run by CEOs that run marathons and companies that are run by CEOs who play golf. So companies that are run by a CEO who can run a marathon will make 57% more money in market value over asset value than a company run by a CEO who plays golf. And it's really interesting science, because then you understand there's a huge impact to that. And the really scary thing is, for those of you who've not known any of this information before, is that we've known this for a decade. So people like me have been walking into boardrooms and helping recruiting companies, executive recruiters, recruit CEOs, CFOs, directors of marketing, and all of those high-level positions based on science that most people in the market are not even aware of. You don't even know how we're making these decisions.
Especially the CEOs for small businesses, medium-sized companies, they might not be aware of this fact that fitness plays a very important role in how they're performing and how they're leading their teams. Like I never knew it. I got to know when I met you.
Yeah, and high-level executive recruiters, they know this. I've known this for a long time. I've been using this with my clients for a decade. And so this is my first time publishing something like this for the general audience, so you can figure it out yourself. You can go through the science. Is actually, it's there, but it's very digestible. It's easy enough to read. Like you said, there's a lot of stories in there. I wanted to make it accessible, but there's a lot of pieces of information that most business leaders won't come in contact with unless they're engaging with a really serious academic leadership coach like myself. So one of the things that has become very informative for us here in the region, actually all over the world during COVID-19, has been the number of redundancies that have happened. And I'm sure that everyone out there knows somebody that has lost their job during COVID-19.
Yes.
Well, we want to know what the social impact of that is. When we deal with the health of an organization and the health of the people in the organization, what does fitness look like in an organization? So I talk about, in the book, I talk about redundancies being a form of liposuction. If you want to lose weight, there's a couple of different ways to do it, right? You can go and get liposuction, or you can go to the gym and actually get fit. And there's a big difference between being fit and losing weight. Just the same in an organization. There's a huge difference between being fit in an organization and losing weight. If you need to lose weight in an organization and you just pull the people out and make them redundant, that's going to have a massive negative impact on your bottom line performance in the second year. The first year, you're going to feel a positive net profit benefit, but in the second year, you're going to feel a negative net profit impact. And one of the most horrible things about the studies that have revealed all of this is that they've also showed that there's a massive health impact for people who have lost their jobs involuntarily. So in two separate studies, for example, both conducted over the same number of people, and it was one in Sweden and one in the United States. So very advanced societies, what we'd say is like A-class societies. They found that the risk of somebody dying goes up by 16% if they lose their job involuntarily and over the next 2 years. And so what that translates to is 1 in every 234 people. 1 in every 234 people that involuntarily lose their job will die as a direct result of that decision.
Oh, this is very serious.
And those are the kinds of, sorry?
I said this is very serious. Like,
yeah.
Considering that the number of people who lost their jobs during COVID-19 and the pandemic, when companies wanted to cut down on their costs and manage operations in a more economical way, it means that a lot of people must be under a lot of stress and they must be losing their health like anything. And they are in, and the chances, you remember Dr. Andrea? She's been on my show a couple of times. There are 2 shows done with her. And recently, I watched her live video on Instagram. One of her friends has just lost her life. It was a suicide, and it was from the disappointments of the times. This is quite scary. So, does the book offer us any solutions to handling our health in such critical times?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I give you a lot of tips and tricks on how to convince yourself to get done what you need to do. So for example, pillar 3 is discipline. And I called it discipline because I was very frustrated with motivation. I don't like motivation theory. I think it's very self-help. And motivation theory in HR management especially is not great because it concentrates on extrinsic motivators, carrots and sticks, total rewards, that kind of thing, right? You get a bonus at the end of the year if you hit the target. If you miss the target, you lose your job, right? Carrots, sticks. Those are extrinsic motivators. But really, the most powerful motivators there are intrinsic motivators. Those are the ones that happen inside of us. And the challenge is that even the most powerful motivators, the ones that are intrinsic within us, they don't last very long, neurochemically speaking. So when you get that chemical hit in your head while you're sitting on the couch that says, and you say, hey, I really need to get to the gym, right? You have that chemical hit, I need to get to the gym, or I need to get a report done, or whatever it is that you need to do. That chemical hit burns off in about 5 to 40 seconds, depending on how long you wait. If you wait longer than 40 seconds, you will get another chemical hit of dopamine for avoiding doing whatever it is that you've avoided doing. So because we have 300,000 years of evolutionary psychology in the direction of avoiding risk and taking risk, your brain doesn't know that the world is civilized and you're not under threat anymore. So when you're sitting on the couch and you think, oh, I really need to get to the gym, you've got 40 seconds to stand up. If you don't stand up, your brain will reward you for avoiding the risk of going to the gym. So people can literally become chemically addicted to not feeling like doing it, not feeling like going to the gym. Whenever you have that, like, oh, I should start the report. If you wait just 40 seconds, you won't feel like it anymore. And you become chemically addicted to not feeling like it. And the reason is because if you actually get up and do the report, you'll get a hit of dopamine in this part of the brain, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and the striatum. But if you avoid doing the report, then your brain assumes that you've avoided something that's risky, and so you'll get a hit of dopamine back here in the anterior insula of your brain. So it's the same addiction. It's a dopamine level addiction, but the difference between high performing executives and low performing executives is where they produce the dopamine, not which drug that they're addicted to.
Right.
So that's the difference between motivation. Motivation is super weak that way. And so I'd say the difference between motivation and discipline is the ability to choose what you do in spite of how you feel. That is, to make a decision about your behavior in spite of the emotional or risk centers of your brain screaming at you to avoid the risk of writing a report, avoid the risk of starting your own business, avoid the risk of going out and accomplishing that fitness goal that you have.
Yeah. So
to avoiding it.
I'm sure that the chapter on discipline will also discuss regulating your thoughts and how you need to control the way you feel about yourself, and how, apart from the decision-making processes that you undergo while you are on high or low levels of motivation, yes, but there is normally a lot of self-talk happening within us. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, in self-talk, actually, I deal with that in pillar 2. That's confidence. So the confidence to do something, that has to do a lot with your internal narrative. You know, what you're saying to yourself, and about what it is that you're trying to attempt. Whether you're attempting to start a new business, or you're attempting to get a better job, or to complete an MBA, whatever it is that you want to attempt requires a certain amount of confidence. Now, the interesting thing about confidence is that it's not a character trait, it's a skill.
It's a skill.
So there's no
can be
such
built.
thing. Sorry?
Something that can be built.
Yes, it's a skill. There is no such thing as a confident human being. There are only human beings that are confident in certain contexts and not confident in others. For example, I'm very confident in public speaking, where some people would be extremely afraid, because public speaking is the #1 human fear, right? It's not snakes or alligators, it's not heights, it's being in front of people and speaking. Public speaking is the #1 fear among humans. But I'm not afraid of public speaking because I have a lot of experience doing it. However, I don't have that level of confidence if I was asked to stand on the same stage and play piano, because I don't have any skills in piano. I don't have any experience with piano. So a person who's very confident in one thing can be extremely not confident in another thing. And that has to do with the amount of experience and skills that they have in whatever that task is that they're being asked to take on. So for example, you're very confident walking right now, but you weren't at some point. At one point, you were 1 year old and you were just starting out walking, and you didn't have the confidence to do it because you lacked the ability, you lacked the experience. Then over time, you gained the ability and the experience, and that gave you confidence. And that's the way that it is building confidence in every arena, whether we're talking about starting a new company or learning a new skill or whatever it is that you're attempting to do. Learning confidence is a set of skills. It is the ability to take on a risk that has the possibility of failure and then succeed. If you succeed, you'll build confidence. If you fail, you'll have to learn. And the really interesting thing again about building confidence is that failure is a choice. either choose to fail or you choose to learn. And so if you choose to learn and you're constantly taking on risks, and from time to time you stumble and fall, but you learn from those experiences, your confidence grows anyway. The only way to lose confidence is actually to fail, and that is a choice. It's when you choose failure over the learning opportunity that's in front of you.
Yeah.
So confidence in that way is a set of skills. It's not a character trait. It's not like somebody's born confident. Nobody's born confident. Everybody learns
Yeah.
confidence in context.
Yes, a lot of us confuse that very often, especially when we are using confident, the word confident as an adjective with people.
Yes.
We just start attributing it as a
Yeah.
trait to somebody's character or personality rather than
Yeah.
thinking that it's an acquired skill, and that's where
That's
the
right.
problem starts.
Yeah. So if you've ever taken a personality test online, or you've heard somebody describe themselves as a confident person, those things are technically not true. Nobody's confident all the time. Everybody is confident in a specific context and not confident in other specific contexts. I'm very confident in English. I'm not as confident in Arabic because I don't have as much experience. I don't have as much practice. But if I don't continue to take risks in Arabic, I'm not going to grow in my level of confidence either. So the trick is to really make sure that you're constantly taking enough risk that you fail or you fall down at least 10 to 15% of the time. If you're not falling down 10% of the time, then you're not running fast enough. Then you're not actually taking the kind of risk that builds confidence. But if you're falling down more than 10 to 15% of the time, then you're risking too much, and then you're probably arrogant. And that's the other trap. So if your skills and abilities are here and your confidence level is way up here, then that's just arrogance, right? When you think you can do more than you can actually do. So this is like when you see America's Got Talent or one of those singing shows, and those horrible singers get on, and you think, how is it that a human being can stand on stage and sing in front of a camera and on live to the whole world and be so horrible and think that they're good? And that's what arrogance is. That's when your confidence level is way above your actual ability. Your actual ability is here. But if your confidence level is way down here and your actual ability is here, that's cowardice. That's just you being afraid. So the trick is, sorry?
The gap has to be small.
Yes. So the trick is to try and guess what your actual ability is and then guess just above it so that you stretch during the experience and your ability goes up. That builds confidence. If you're succeeding more often than you fail, and if all of your failures are learning opportunities, then you will grow in confidence. But if you're not succeeding more often, then you're probably just arrogant. And if you're succeeding all the time, then you're just a coward because you're not trying anything too hard.
Okay, great. That's very interesting. Thank you so much. I never thought about building confidence in this way. I was
yeah, that's all.
Okay, if you want to do something, you should not feel shy and go ahead and do it. So that will build your
Of course. Look, all human confidence requires risk. If there's no risk, you will not grow. It has to come with risk. Okay, so that risk is the number one ingredient in confidence building. You will not get confident until you take on a risk. And you have to be falling down from time to time to know that you're taking on the right kind of challenges. But that's a really important, and that's all in pillar number 2. Pillar number 2 of my book is all about confidence. Pillar number 3 is about discipline. And then pillar number 4 is to make sure you have the right people with you. That's about connecting.
That's about
and in so pillar number 1, we talk about dopamine, which is a neurochemical that we produce in our heads to reward us for when we do something good or when we avoid a risk. And we talk about serotonin, which is a great feel-good chemical that you get when you exercise, when you work out, when you do something that's either mentally fitness-related or physically fitness-related. You get serotonin from that. In pillar number 3, in discipline, we talk about the usefulness of dopamine from both a risk avoidance perspective and from a reward center perspective. And so you can actually use your addiction to dopamine to develop the kinds of habits that make you successful. And in pillar number 4, I talk about oxytocin, which is the next really big neurochemical. All of us produce oxytocin in our heads every day, We absolutely love it. As a matter of fact, if you Google oxytocin online, you'll probably find that it's called the love hormone or the trust hormone. And that's because love and trust are, chemically speaking, from a neurochemical standpoint, they're called oxytocin. Oxytocin is the real name of love and trust in a human. So when we meet someone for the very first time, within 1/5 of 1 second, we decide whether or not we trust that person. If we do not trust them, we release cortisol in our heads, which is a stress chemical, and it's meant to take us into the fight or flight response. And if we do trust that person, we release oxytocin, which is a bonding chemical, which allows us to share with each other our secrets and trust, so that we know that we can provide and protect each other when we're not looking. And that's how we figure out who it is on the planet that we want to partner with, who we want to be neighbors with, who we want to be friends with. That's how we connect with our mothers and our fathers. That's how we connect with our siblings. It's all done on oxytocin. So we also do that in business. Oxytocin is the most profitable chemical in business.
True, it is, because it helps us build trust.
That's right.
When we were talking about risk taking, do you think we have to take always calculated risks?
Yes, definitely. Yes, you have to, because you're not growing if you don't take a risk, right? If there's no risk, then you're not going to grow in confidence, and you're probably just a coward.
No, I'm talking about calculated risks versus uncalculated risks.
No, you have to take a calculated risk, because, like I said, if you attempt something that's way above your ability, right? Doing stuff doesn't require confidence. Confidence is just an ingredient. Doing stuff actually requires information, skills, ability, knowledge, training, experience, education. That's what doing stuff requires. If you want to start a business, confidence is not going to be enough. You need to actually know a little bit about economics. You need to know about business strategy. You need to know about marketing. You need to know about product or service provision. So it's not enough just to be confident. And it's not enough just to have an idea. You have to actually have skills and abilities. If you want to be a concert violin player, it's not enough to be confident. Confident is not going to make you a good violin player. You have to actually have skills and abilities and talent and 10,000 hours of practice if you want to be a really good violin player. Those are the actual ingredients of getting things done. So confidence is not enough to get something done. Confidence is your assessment of your abilities as relative to the task. So if you believe the task requires this much abilities, and you believe that your abilities are this much, then that's appropriate confidence. But what if you find out that your abilities are down here? What if you find out that you're just a bad singer on America's Got Talent? And it's you that's up on stage in front of everybody singing terribly, and you think you're great. Well, that happens. It happens in the world of business. It happens in public speaking. It happens online all the time. It happens with influencers on Instagram. They think they're amazing, and actually there's not much substance there. So we've all seen these people, and they become very entertaining for the rest of us, but it's very sad for us to find out that it's us, that we're the ones that are singing like horrible dying crows on the stage of business, because we don't actually have the skills or abilities that are required to pull off what we're confident we can pull off. So confidence itself isn't a really good measure. It's an assessment of your abilities. It's not commensurate with your abilities. It's your perception of your abilities. That's what confidence is.
Thank you so much. You have explained it very well.
Sorry?
I said you have explained it very well for all of us.
Yeah, good. But the fourth one, I think the fourth pillar is extremely important. It's about eye contact and making sure that we're connected with the right people. You know that most people in business, they will work for 23% less money if they're in an job that they enjoy, and if they're working with people that they're connected to. And they don't have to be connected with the whole company. They just need to be connected with the 7 or 8 people that are working closest to them, including their line manager.
The closest group that they have formed within the company.
That's correct. Remember, you're spending half of your life in work. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an employee or you're an employer, it doesn't matter. You're a professor or a school teacher, whatever it is that you do for work, you're spending half of your life there every day. You're spending 8 out of your 16 awake hours every day at work. That's half of your life. That's not other than you. It's not all of you, but it's not other than you. So you have to pay attention to who it is that you're spending your time with. Those people, those 7 or 8 people that you interact with most, they will determine the quality of your experience at work. And the neurochemical that governs the quality of that experience more than anything else is oxytocin. If you can produce oxytocin with the people that are around you at work, your experience of work will go up, their experience of work will go up, both of your productivity and your performance will go up, and the profitability of the company will go up. And Gallup says that it will go up by about 21% over companies that are not, that have employees that are not engaged. So really engaged employees that are connected with each other in these great little economic communities, those kinds of employees, they work harder to the tune of 21% on the profit line.
And this is a big percentage. Seriously, it makes a big difference.
Okay, and also I want to remind you, these aren't secrets. We've had this academics like me, we've known this for a decade. We've been teaching this to high-level executives for a long time. So they know exactly what needs to be done. And some companies are very, very good at adapting to this information, and some companies aren't. But this has not been a secret. This has just been kept at a higher level than most people can reach. And that's why I wrote the book, is to make sure that everyone can reach it. This is, it's great information, it's great research, and it'll help you to connect with the people that are around you. And I give you great practical tips and tricks as well. Like, do you know how long you need to make eye contact in order to build trust?
How many seconds?
How long?
Okay, let's say 15 seconds.
Yeah?
15 seconds or 30 seconds?
It's between 2 seconds and 5 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very specific. So if you meet somebody for the very first time and you make eye contact with them and you quickly look away, that communicates to them that you're not interested in building a relationship.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't trust them. They interpret that immediately. Remember, we have 300,000 years of practice at meeting people face to face and determining whether or not we trust them. And if you hold eye contact for more than 6 to 9 seconds, that means you probably want to fight them or you're interested in them romantically.
How many seconds was that? Okay, let's say how many seconds was that again?
It's between 2 seconds and 5 seconds. If you hold eye contact for more than 9 seconds, you're picking a fight or you want their phone number. That's it.
That's cool.
Which is really funny because, like I said, this is all based on evolutionary psychology, and we have 300,000 years of momentum in the direction of making decisions that we're not sure that we're even conscious we're making anymore. But if you're aware of why we make the kinds of decisions we make and how we can exhibit the kinds of behaviors that we want, you will have total control over your life. You will be able to get the job that you want. You will be able to learn the information that you want. You will have the body that you want, the mind that you want. You can do all of that. But you have to get control of yourself first. And we are
also
neurochemical machines here.
Sorry to cut you short. Did you also mention smiling as a strategy to build good relationships?
Yes, of course.
So what were the metrics for that? How much should people smile?
Oh, goodness. I didn't read research on how much people should smile. I really didn't. But smiling has been around since Dale Carnegie wrote his How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was 1972 or 73. And he said, you remember the 3 rules for how to win friends? Is to use people's names, because research shows that everybody's favorite word is their own name. So use people's names, treat people the way that they want to be treated, and smile. Those are the 3 rules. And Dale Carnegie he hit it right on the head. He was great in the 70s, and that is exactly true. It stays true. Use people's names because that's their favorite word, and smile and treat them the way that they expect to be treated, and that's how you win friends and influence people. That science has been around for 40 years. So we've known that for a very long time. But I don't know exactly how long you should smile at someone. I just know that you shouldn't maintain eye contact for more than 6 seconds or less than 2.
Do you have any interesting stories? Yeah. Do you have any interesting stories from your experiences about eye contact?
Yeah. Like, okay. So I was running a Spartan. I'm a Spartan race runner. I run obstacle course races. I don't know if you know about those. They're like military races. We have to run through the and over mountains and carry buckets of rocks and jump over walls, and it's really fun. I run 5 kilometer to 25 kilometer races off road, and they're
Wow.
very difficult. They take hours sometimes to do. So one time I remember in 2016, the Tough Mudder came to Dubai for the very first time. And the Tough Mudder is one of these obstacle course races where you're running through soft sand, carrying buckets, climbing over walls. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to go and do it. It's a 16-kilometer race. No problem. I can do that. So I rock up to the Tough Mudder because I've never done one before. I've done Spartan and Desert Warrior Challenge and Nass Night Challenge and some of the other ones, Old School Challenge. And I got up to the Tough Mudder starting line, and the guy with the bullhorn who usually says, okay, ready, set, go, he said, okay, everybody, this is not a timed race. And I was like, oh, okay. And he says, also, if you see people that need help, you should help them. And if you need help, just let people know. And I was like, okay, that's a little weird, but fine. It's a feel-good race. That's fine. I can handle that. So 3, 2, 1, go. We're off, right? I'm running through the sand. A couple of kilometers go by, climb over the walls, running again, climb over the tires and all the obstacles, running again. And then suddenly I jump down into this pit of mud, and I'm buried up to my chest in mud like this. And I look up, and there's a ledge that I have to grab onto to pull myself up so that I can get over the ledge, right? And I'm buried in mud. So I reach up and I grab onto the ledge, and it rotates. I couldn't believe it. The whole thing comes down, and it's a block that just keeps coming down, and it rotating in the mud. I'm never going to be able to get over this thing. So I realized this was not the kind of race that I could win alone, and I was going to have to make eye contact. So immediately I'm looking around, right? Like, who else is here? Who else is here? And I look around, and there's this guy right next to me, and he jumps into the mud, and he looks at me, and I looked at him, and I was like, okay, jump, go. And so I hold the block on the bottom side, and he jumped up and climbed over and pulled on the backside so that it would lift me up, and then I could get over. And we did that, and then there was another one, and then there was another one. And so we helped each other do that, and then we looked at each other, and do you think that we kept running alone after that? No. Because we realized this was not the kind of race that you could win alone. You'd have to make eye contact to do it. So we kept running. Yeah, but this was a person I didn't even know his name. I still don't know his name. But we started running together. And then after another kilometer, sure enough, there was this massive ramp where you had to like get up to the top, but it was impossible. It was very slippery, and there was mud over everything. It was very steep. And so we realized we were going to have to build a human ladder. So if I was to lay down on the ramp and then someone was to climb up me, it would take 5 people climbing up over my shoulders to get to the top of this ramp. So he and I, me and this guy, we're working together, but we need more people. We need at least 4 more people. So we're looking around, we're making eye contact again, and we're like finding these, there's a little team of 3 people over there. Yeah, they want to help. Okay, that's great. Come over here. So then I get down onto the ramp, and then suddenly, now keep in mind, this is a great example of appropriate contextual physical touch. A stranger whose name I still don't know, whom I had met about 30 seconds earlier, was stepping on my head in order to get to the top of this ramp. That, in context, was appropriate physical touch. So these strangers are stepping on my back and stepping on my shoulders and then stepping on the top of my head to climb up, to make this human ladder. And then when they get to the top, then I climb up them, and I climb up this human ladder to get to the top, and we all get to the top, and we're all high-fiving each other like this, making eye contact. And did you think that any one of us started running again by themselves? No way.
You were a team.
We were a team, just like that. We had made eye contact. We didn't even know each other's names, and we had already stepped on each other's heads, and it was only 1 or 2 minutes that had gone by. That's amazing. Is the power of eye contact. You can be okay with on your eye contact with you.
Great. That was a very interesting story. I really enjoyed listening. You're such an amazing storyteller. I realized it today. No wonder the book is so super cool.
Listen, I don't want to be on introducing you to pillars 5 and 6. I want to make sure that your listeners understand what the 6 pillars really are. So the 5th one, super important. After you've got your confidence down, your discipline down, your connecting down, and your fitness down, then you need to learn how to rest. Rest is a pillar of performance. The people who rest well, if you sleep well, if you rest well, you will think better, you will move better. Your fitness and your rest are intrinsically connected. So if you sleep better, you will exercise better, you will sleep better, you will exercise better. And if you sleep poorly, you will exercise poorly and your sleep will be poor and then your exercise will be poor. So both of those things, exercise and sleep, they have a reciprocal relationship going on. So you can beef one up by beefing up the other. You can start a good pattern that way. That's a very easy way. But there's an actual physical cost to you and to your organization for executives that don't get enough rest. If you sleep less than 6 hours a night for 2 nights in a row, your productivity goes down by 12%, and that hit on productivity lasts for 6 days. So I've actually shown you in the book, I've given you the calculation for how to figure out how much money on the bottom line it costs when one executive or one manager has a big weekend out partying. You know that calculation now, it's in the book. So you can figure out exactly how much it costs when your people don't sleep enough, which is why companies like Google and Nike and all of these other big companies are putting rest pods in their offices, because they understand people need to sleep. When you sleep, then your body heals, you go into delta mode, all the beta amyloids get flushed out of your brain, and beta amyloids, if they block up, they lead to Alzheimer's. So a lack of sleep can lead to Alzheimer's. And that's really important system flush for you every night. You need to rest. So I always laugh at those executives that say, oh, I work 18-hour days and I haven't taken a vacation since 1991. Because that's the worst possible thing. You never, ever want to brag about that. That's the worst. In fact, based on the science that I've read and reported in my book, I think that boards of directors should put sleep monitoring bands on their executives and give them bonuses based on how much they sleep at night, and making sure that they get more than 7 hours. 7 hours for men, 7 hours and 20 minutes for women. It's a little bit different. You guys need more sleep.
Yes. True.
But
So
yeah,
all those stories from different entrepreneurs who've been bragging that they've not been resting enough are not good
yeah.
stories. You really need to rest. You really need to
Yes.
de-stress, relax, give yourself the time to re-energize, and then get back to work.
Now, look, I train pretty hard. Right now, I'm in a no days off cycle. So in this particular cycle, today is day 7, 8, 9, 10. Today is day 10. So I work out every day, no days off. But the only way that I can sustain that is if I sleep 7 hours a night every night, no nights off. So like I said, there's a reciprocal relationship between sleep and exercise. You can work out every day as long as you're sleeping every night. If you break one or both of those cycles, then it's not going to work. You're gonna cause damage. But you can actually work out, or you can exercise no days off as long as you're sleeping, no nights off. But it has to be both. So there's that, and there's also other ways that you can rest while you're awake. Mindfulness comes to mind. I deal with mindfulness in my book as well. What it is to actually stop, control your breathing, be aware, and be present where you are. That lowers the frequency of information in your brain, so you're actually processing at a slower speed, and that helps your brain to rest while you're awake. And the other one that I find is really interesting from a rest perspective is flow. The flow is a neurological state between alpha and theta at about 8 hertz, when your brain is just bordering on daydreaming. Have you ever had the experience where you're driving home and you don't remember driving, but you pull into the driveway, you park your car, and you go, wait, how did I get here? Okay?
Yes.
I think most people have had that experience. That's a very dangerous thing, right? You're driving a car. You're driving at more than 100 kilometers an hour, operating a 2-ton bullet, and there's other people around, and they're unpredictable. And yet you drove without being aware of it at all. How can you be conscious and do something extremely complex like driving without being aware of it? Well, there's a neurological state for that. It's called flow. And when you bring your brain down from 24 hertz, where it's operating now, to about 8 hertz, you can do a lot of activities in a flow state, which allows you to be extremely productive in a state of rest.
Okay.
So most of my research and writing has been done in a flow state. And when you're in a flow state, you shut down the prefrontal cortex here and move your processing power into the back of your brain where you have a lot more power. Here we have 120 bits of processing power. It's not much. Basically, two human voices at the same time will take up all of the processing power that you have right here. Any more than two human voices at the same time and you're overloaded. But if you can shut down your prefrontal cortex and do your thinking back here, you have billions of bits of information and processing power. You can do so much more if you're calculating back here. So when I do research, because I've been doing it for 2 decades and I'm very good at it and I have 10,000 hours of practice, I can do research and write in a state of flow. And what happens is I can sit down and start to read, and I put on a certain kind of music to get me into the right state of mind. And then within 2 minutes, I'm in a state of flow. So I forget that I exist because your self-awareness is here. I forget about time because your time awareness is here. And I forget about all the nagging voices in my head that say I can't do it or I shouldn't do it or I'm tired or I'd rather be doing something else, because all of those voices are up here too. So when you shut this down and you move your processing back here, you can be clean and clear and you can concentrate and be not aware, but you can do incredibly complex things like driving a car and be totally unaware that you're doing it. So for me, 6 or 8 hours can go by. I don't feel hungry. I don't feel thirsty. I don't have to go to the washroom. I'm not aware of myself. I don't look at my watch. And as a matter of fact, most of my first master's degree I wrote from a single Starbucks. While I was sitting at the Starbucks, I would often walk in, buy a cup of coffee, sit the coffee down, and never touch it. Within 2 minutes, I'd be in a state of flow. 6 or 8 hours would go by, and the coffee would still be sitting there untouched, cold, because I'm not aware of what's happening. I just process.
Do we need to train ourselves to be in that state of flow?
Yes, it's a skill. It's a skill, and you do need to train yourself to be in it. But it's an incredibly powerful skill. I think it's the most powerful skill of executive performance is that state of flow. And you'll learn about that in chapter 5, pillar 5 of the book.
In chapter 5, all right. And how long does it take a person to actually train himself into getting into this state productively?
You have to start with, one of the reasons why you can drive in flow is because you have thousands of hours of practice, right? When you put together a combination of activities that go into driving, which is noticing where cars are, knowing what the lines on the pavement mean, knowing what the signs on the side of the road mean, knowing where your signal is, your gas pedal, your brake pedal. There's a lot of different activities that go into driving a car. But if you've done them thousands of times, then they become like second nature, like muscle memory. And then all your brain has to do is to take those thousands of things that you've done thousands of times and put them in a new order, right? You've driven down this street before, but not with this kind of car next to you and not with that kind of truck in front of you. But that's okay. It's not huge variance. Your brain knows what to do. It just puts the pieces together like playing Tetris. So your brain becomes interested in the game, like a Tetris game. And it takes all of the little pieces that you're doing and it puts them together. And so you can do that with almost any activity if you know all of the different pieces that go into that activity and you're putting them together in a new and novel way. So playing music would be the same. If you know an instrument well enough to know all of the notes, you know where all of the keys are on the piano and exactly what sound they make, and your fingers know exactly where to go, you can very likely play piano in a state of flow. You'd be totally unaware of what you were doing, but entirely conscious of it. So you're not unconscious, you're just unaware, but incredibly productive. Extreme sportsmen are very productive because they have to do what they do in a state of flow. They've practiced 10,000 hours of skydiving or skateboarding or whatever it is that they're doing, or snowboarding. And those 10,000 hours, they come together in a new and unique combination of little movements that they've practiced tens of thousands of times. And so they can do it in a state of flow, and their brains are incredibly relaxed at the times when they're doing the most difficult, most death-defying tricks. Their brain states are incredibly relaxed.
Do we have a master class for this training?
Yes, I do. Yeah, actually, there was too much information to put in a book because people don't want to read the kinds of books that I want to write. I would like to write books like this, but that's too much information for people, and I couldn't do all of it. So what I did was I took each of those pillars, all 6 pillars, and I've turned each of them into a master class. So the
Okay.
masterclass is between 3 and 4 hours, and it's me teaching on video all about fitness, physical fitness, mental fitness, and organizational fitness in pillar one, all about confidence, how to hack your own confidence through internal and external emotional and experiential inputs in pillar two. Pillar three is all about discipline, how to defeat motivation and how to change motivation into discipline, both for yourself and for the people around you, and to create an entire disciplined organization. That's also interesting. So I take all of these things from both story and science, and all from personal, interpersonal, and organizational standpoints. And so it's all of the 6 pillars. Each of them are their own masterclass. So there's a masterclass on rest. There's a masterclass on connecting. There's a masterclass on competition. The first 3 are already produced, and they're up on my site.
On the
And
website.
sorry?
They're up on the website now?
Yes, they're up on the website now. So if you follow the link that I gave you before, you'll find links into the master classes. You'll also find a link to find the ebook online, and there's links there to Amazon and Barnes and Noble and places where you can find a physical book. If you're like me and you're from the 20th century and you enjoy the smell of a new book, which I absolutely love, then
Same here.
you're getting, I like the paper version. I can't read on Kindle. It just bothers like, okay, so I can do research papers on Kindle, but not books. I like to hold it and smell it. It smells amazing. Yeah, I like the smell of a new book. So if you like the smell of a new book, then all those links are on the page, as well as the ebook and the master classes. But I really encourage you to start with fitness. Fitness is the foundation. And I swear to you, this is not a fitness book. This is a leadership book. And the reason that I started my leadership with fitness is because of the massive effect it will have on your personal performance, your productivity, and the profitability of your company if you do it.
So this means that leaders need to inspire their teams also into all these 6 pillars as their best strengths.
Yes, absolutely.
And the best should go and get them.
Sorry?
And get them out. I'm saying so everybody should go and get into the master classes and master the skills.
Okay, listen. I had one company this week order 100 books and 60 master classes for their top executives.
Wow.
Just one company. Because they understand science behind this. Now it's very easy to understand when I present it to you. I give you all of the research papers so you can look at the research papers if you want to. You don't have to, because I do all the digesting for you and I teach you how to use the information. But I had just in one company just this week 100 books and 60 courses because they understand the science. This is not a normal online course for leadership. It's not Leadership 101. This is the sharp edge of the knife that divides exceptional performing executives from mediocre performing executives. And if you want that high-level position in your career or in your life, and if you want that high-level performance in your life, you have to know this science, because I guarantee you your competitors know, and they're using it. So if you're not using it, you will always be behind and you won't know why.
We have one question from our listeners.
Sure.
I will show it here. Murad Aslam is asking, is there any exercise for consistency?
Yes. Yeah, actually, you mean consistent behavior? Absolutely, yes. So in pillar number 3 in discipline, when I talk about motivation and discipline, the key to consistency is to build a neurological network in your head that requires a kind of behavior from yourself. We call it a habit. Building a habit is a neurological process. You start with firing neurons in a new and unique way, and then you strengthen that particular firing by repeating it over and over and over again. But the only way to do that is to lower the activation energy that's required to get the thing done that needs to be done. So, for example, going to the gym is really tough if you've never done it. I know that because I did it. However, if you know the neuroscience behind getting yourself to go to the gym, it can be quite easy. So for the first 10 days of my fitness journey, to build on my consistency, I knew in order to build a habit, you have to do it every day for 21 days, no days off, 21 days straight. But if I was to just wake up in the morning and say, go to the gym and work out, but I've never worked out before and I've never gone to the gym before, it's not going to work because there's too much activation energy required in order to get that done. My brain goes, oh, what if you get hurt? Oh, it's going to take so much energy. Why don't you just get a Big Mac instead? Oh, the TV is so close to you. Just go to the fridge. You'll find a snack. You'll feel great. You'll get dopamine. That's what you want, right? So your brain is always trying to hijack you and shortcut you into easier sources of dopamine. And you can lower the activation energy for yourself to build the consistency that you want in whatever exercise you're pursuing by telling yourself tiny, tiny, tiny little stories about what you're doing. So for example, for me, for the first 10 days when I was going on my fitness journey for the first time, I would have my alarm would go off, and I would tell myself this story. You don't have to work out. You just have to pack your bag. Okay, well, that's not hard. I can do that. It only takes a minute. And then I've confused my brain into thinking, actually, I'm doing something really easy. So what I do is I get up and I go pack my bag. When I've actually packed my bag, which is something easy, not difficult, I get a hit of dopamine. But I get the hit of dopamine up here in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and in the striatum, and not back here where I've avoided a risk. I haven't avoided a risk. I've achieved something. So I've gotten the same chemical hit, but in a different part of my brain. Then I can tell myself another story. I've got my bag packed. I don't have to work out, but I have to put my bag in the car. Okay, that costs about 90 seconds, maybe 3 or 4 calories worth of energy. So my brain goes, yeah, there's not too much risk involved in that. Let's put the bag in the car. So I put the bag in the car, and then I tell myself the next story because I just got a hit of dopamine up here, not back here. Got another one up here. So I tell myself the next story. You don't have to work out, but you have to drive to the gym. Okay, so I'm breaking your story down into these tiny, tiny little exercises lowers the activation energy required by your brain in order to build the consistency and the behavior that you want. Slowly, and I tell you, I swear to you, it was 10 days of this storytelling in my head because I knew how to hack the brain, right? I did this for 10 days. I told myself that story. You don't have to go to the gym. You just have to go into the gym and check in. You don't have to work out. You just have to put on your gym shoes. You don't have to exercise. You just have to go to the class and check into the class. And by the time I got there, it was like, okay, you don't have to finish the workout, but you have to start. And I would tell myself these tiny, tiny little stories to lower the activation energy that was required in my head to get things done. And slowly, I built an addiction. I built an addiction because I created space for the production of dopamine in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex of my brain rather than in the anterior insula of my brain. And so that became how I built the consistency. And that's how all consistency in behavior is built, is through these chemical addictions. We're addicted to dopamine, we're addicted to serotonin and to oxytocin and to the endorphins that we get when we work out. Building on those addictions which exist in your head and they are heroin level addictions. If you learn how to control the heroin that you produce in your head, you can cause yourself to do anything every day.
True. That's a great tip. I'm going to do the same now.
Yes, definitely.
For all challenging tasks, tell myself little stories so that I can have a breakthrough and go ahead and do things. So we still have to talk about the 6th pillar. We were on the 5th one, and the question came. The 6th one is rest.
Yeah, so the 5th one is rest. Yeah, and the 6th one is competition. So I recognize that really, really high-performing executives use competition, but they use it in a way that most people don't understand. So, for example, take Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, right? They've been exceptional football players for the last 15 years. And they are just at number 1 and 2, they're up here. Number 3 is down here. Like, these guys are in a league of their own, even though they only ever meet each other on the field maybe 2 times a year. They're only actually physically competing twice a year. But the rest of the time, they're competing with each other, not because they want to be better than each other, but because competing with Lionel Messi makes Cristiano Ronaldo stronger. And he said so in an interview that I quote in the book. He says it online. You'll be able to find the quote that he and Lionel Messi have been competing with each other, and being in competition with each other makes each of them stronger. And neither of them would be as good of football players as they are now if it wasn't for the other one being on a field half a planet away. And that actually is a very common story in high-performing executives too. So if you take, for example, the 1997 issue between Microsoft and Apple, for example. I don't know if you remember this story or not, but in the fall of the summer of 1997, Apple was 3 months away from insolvency. They were about to go bust. They had just spent $450 million buying Next operating systems and getting Steve Jobs back onto the CEO table. And Steve Jobs didn't have any money to work with, and they needed cash. So what's Steve Jobs going to do? Well, nothing. The company wasn't worth anything. Everyone could see it was going to die. And Apple was that close to death. And guess what happened? Microsoft. Bill Gates. Bill Gates paid for about a third of Apple. He spent 150 million US dollars to keep Apple in business. Now, why would the leader of Microsoft pay to keep a struggling competitor in business?
To spike up the competition.
Yes, because having Apple in the market makes Microsoft stronger. And Bill Gates knew this. That's one of his pieces of genius that we don't recognize, is he kept Apple alive so that Microsoft would be stronger. Now, after the iPad and the iPhone came out, I think it was 2002, 2003, Microsoft sold all of their stocks in Apple, so they don't own any of Apple anymore. They only kept them alive enough to get them stronger to the place where they would be an actual competitor, so that they would be the Lionel Messi to their Cristiano Ronaldo, so that there would be another competitor in the market that was worthy of them. Because having a great competitor in the market makes you stronger. And so great executives curate competition in their lives, not for the sake of winning, but for the sake of their own self-development, because they know that competing against somebody else in an infinite game makes them stronger. That is what real competitors do. Real competitors compete for self-development, not for the sake of winning. Winning is a secondary goal. And actually, in the case of Microsoft and Apple, they don't want to win. They don't want to actually win the game. You don't want Apple to go out of the market, because that means that Microsoft doesn't have any competitors. And they're not going to be as strong as they could be. And they won't provide as good a service or as good a product as they could, because there's nobody competing with them. It's the competition that makes them stronger.
Great. It's a lovely story, by the way.
Yeah, competition makes you stronger, not winning. Winning doesn't make you stronger. Competition makes you stronger.
Okay, this is a very different perspective.
Yes, but all the science is there. So look, those are the 6 pillars. All of them are extremely unique. And the reason that you won't have heard of them before is because maybe you can't afford an executive coach of this caliber. Maybe you can't afford to take a PhD in leadership. Maybe you don't like to read the research on all of these things. But there's people like myself in the market that have been providing this information for a decade. We know all of this. And we are giving other companies, other leaders, other managers, and other executives an advantage because they're paying us to. And so I've taken that advantage and made it accessible. And so I hope that on the low side, I hope you read the book and I hope you take a few pieces of information from it. And on the high side, if you want more, there's a deep dive in the master classes. And if you are a part of a great organization and you do want more input, then I'm available as a strategist and a coach.
Great. Thank you so much for amazing stories and great insights, Dr. Corrie. I really enjoyed your conversation, and I believe that everybody else also did. We had lesser questions today. I think everybody loved listening more than asking questions today. But thank you so much. And yes, everybody who wants to get the book can easily get it from Dr. Corrie's website. We've been showing the website link in the bottom of our screen today all this while, so it's easier for you to go and get it.
Good.
If you want a master class, it's on the same website and you'll be easily able to find it. If you feel any difficulty, feel free to contact us.
Thank you, Nousheen. It's been a pleasure. Good to see you again.
Thank you so much. Yes. Have a good night. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.